We started August 1st with a goal to preserve something every day. Big or small, it didn't matter. We could preserve it in any way we wanted. We could can it, we could pickle it, we could ferment it, we could freeze it, we could dry it. Didn't matter. Preserve something every day. 31 days. How much can you do in 31 days just preserving something every day? Well, today we're going to take a look. You have seen this week by week as we've gone through, but I like the big picture overview, especially to encourage those of you who have not participated in the challenge before. This is how much you can get done. In fact, I've seen pictures from you guys. Many of you have done way more than this. So let's go through it today. Welcome to Grow and Preserve. I'm Carter, and I'm so glad you're here today. Let's just jump right in because I have a ton of frozen things up front. So let's go through those relatively quickly so I can get those back in the freezer where they belong. We're going to start over here. These are frozen tomatoes from the garden. I have paste tomatoes, I have slicer tomatoes, I even have a big bag of tomatillos. That's going to become my salsa verde this winter, or this fall perhaps. And then my paste tomatoes will go on to do something, maybe salsa. I'm thinking that the slicer tomatoes may go into like a V4, V8 kind of vegetable juice. So those are my plans there, and I have a couple more bags in the freezer that just wouldn't fit. So we're looking at over, I don't know, over 25 pounds, probably closer to 30 pounds of tomatoes in the freezer waiting for me to process later this winter. All right, let's jump over to this tray now, which is overflowing. And frankly, I left so much of this stuff in the freezer, but I tried to get a representative sample of everything I could. So we'll go through a few of these things pretty quickly. I took the last of last year's sweet potatoes and I roasted them and then flash froze them and then put them in serving size containers. So I like to put these on my salad in the winter. You have a good yummy kale salad with a bunch of roasted root vegetables. These are fantastic on that. So that's how I'll use those. I also did a bunch of different peppers and onions. So I did this a few times. These are really because I don't function well in the morning. I can just pull this bag out and throw it in the eggs rather than having to find a bag of peppers, find a bag of onions, get some different colors, you know, whatever. This makes my life easier, and I'm very happy to have these. I probably have 2 dozen of these now. I did them a couple of times during the challenge. I have several bags of these cherry tomatoes that I'm thinking I'll just add to brighten up some sauces throughout the winter. So I'm excited to have these. I probably have 10 or 12 bags of these, so that's fantastic. I have several bags, I'm not gonna pull it out because everything will fall. I have several bags of diced jalapeno peppers that I can see using in chilies, or maybe making some jalapeno cornbread, or use them to make my own salsa during the winter with the tomatoes. So I'm excited about that. I have some roasted potatoes. When I did the potato canning that we'll get to in a minute, I had some left over. I had some that we had, you know, skewered with a fork as we were digging them out, some that were a little small. So I roasted those up and then packaged them for the freezer. I have pesto. I have a couple of bags of pesto, and they're big bags. They're like family-sized bags of pesto. So when I roast an entire spaghetti squash, I can use one of these bags, and that'll be just the perfect amount for that. I also have in here the oven-dried roasted Italian tomatoes. I don't know, it's probably a better way to say that, but they are fantastic. They were dried in the oven and flash frozen, and then I packaged them in serving size for the two of us to have on a salad, to have on a pizza, to have in a sauce. You know, there's kind of it's a viral recipe, has been around for years, of chicken and coconut cream and artichokes and dried tomatoes. These would be absolutely perfect in that recipe. So I imagine that'll be on my list this winter. It's one of David's favorites. All right, one of my favorite items that we did this month, I think is going to prove to be the sous vide chicken breasts. I probably have a dozen or so of these left. We used a couple of last night. I threw this whole bag in just a pan of water, and it defrosted in maybe 30 minutes. And then I pulled them out, threw them in the air fryer, did a couple of minutes on each side, just to give them a little bit of color. They were fantastic. They were really perfect on our salad. I have a picture of it, I'll put it up. So these are going to be a great item, and I'm going to be doing some more of these. Super easy dinner. Okay, let's move on to the refrigerated items. Right now in my refrigerator, I have just half a quart left of the fermented pico de gallo. I started with 2 quarts, and we have eaten a quart and a half. This stuff is so fantastic. Gets zippier as it sits, so we are really enjoying that. I also made 2 quarts of fermented hot pickles, as you can see from all of the red peppers in there. These are really good. We are currently eating our way through the refrigerator pickles, and then we'll start on these because these will last significantly longer. All right, that's it for the frozen and refrigerated items. I'm going to get these back where they belong so I don't lose anything, and then we'll talk about all of the pantry stable items. All right, we're going to start down on this end of the table. When I started this challenge in August, I found that I had no room in my freezer when I went to put some of those big tomatoes in there. And as I started pulling stuff out, I found like 7 chicken carcasses, either from chickens that I had baked myself or from rotisserie chickens, or bones that I had bought specifically to make stock. So first thing I needed to do was get all of that out of the freezer. And I ended up with 6 quarts of chicken broth and 10 pints of chicken broth. So I'm very pleased to have that on the shelf. I was running low. I knew I was running low, which is why I had bought the bones in the first place. Just didn't quite realize how much had piled up. So it was time to get that done, and I'm glad I did. I also, from that same processing session, I ended up with a bunch of rotisserie chicken that I just pulled off the bones. So that was very exciting to get, and quite a surprise. I have 4 pints of this, and I'll use this for soups this winter. That's generally my favorite purpose for this. So I'm excited about that. If you were going to do a chicken pot pie or something, this would also be good to throw in. Salsa was one of my was one of my husband's highest priorities for this canning season. So I have done plenty of salsa. I have, I think, 19 half pints of the zesty salsa. This is from the Ball Blue Book. And I have 17 roasted salsas. So I don't know if you could actually see the difference from here. This one is exactly as it's written in the Ball Book. This one is the exact same recipe, but it's done differently. This one takes less than half the time of this one. So I have both. They taste totally different. If you put them both on a platter and serve them to people with chips, they would have no idea that it was the exact same ingredients, same quantities, same everything. So anyway, if you haven't seen those videos, go back and take a look at those. So I'm now adding 36 half pints of salsa. It is possible that I could make some more salsa later this winter because I do have the tomatoes and I have the jalapenos, as you saw. I have plenty of onions, so we could be able to do this if we need to. Next is coleslaw. This is my first time canning coleslaw. This is a recipe from one of you. This is good stuff. It is really good stuff. So this is going to be a favorite. David was excited to have that on the shelf. I also did some sugar-free cowboy candy. David had never had cowboy candy before. He thought this was great. I thought it was great as long as it was on like a big bite of hamburger or something. Otherwise it was a little too hot for me. He didn't think it was that hot. But anyway, this has worked out very well. So far so good on this one. V4 juice, I mentioned that earlier, something I'm going to do with the slicer tomatoes. This was actually just leftover juice, and there were some solids in there as well from the roasted, no, from the zesty salsa, I think. Yeah, from this one. So I just blended everything together and canned it up, and this is delicious. I'm calling it V4 juice. Doesn't have quite as many vegetables in it as the V8, but it is absolutely delicious. So I'm going to do some more of these, and that's probably where those slicer tomatoes in the freezer are going to go to. Then I had a mistake that I needed to correct. I was at the store and I bought what I was expecting to be chicken breast. Turned out to be a cut of chicken that I don't particularly care for. I was never going to cook it for us. It was just going to get shoved to the back of my freezer, continually be in the way. It was going to remind me that I had you know, made a mistake and bite. So I turned it into critter food. So I have a little dog and 2 cats, and they will absolutely love having some canned chicken on the shelf. So I feel really good about that now. Tomatoes. These are my dried cherry tomatoes. My goal was to get 2 quarts done. I actually end up getting almost 3 quarts of these done. So I'm very excited about that. I use about 4 quarts a year. So I'm almost done. I'm gonna get there, I think. I also dried some thyme. You know, it takes a lot of time to make a little jar like this, but I'm very happy to have it. I love fresh thyme. It's just totally different than what you buy at the grocery store. I also, because of all my salsa canning, I have a bunch of dried tomato skins. I have 2 quarts of these. I'm working on a third, and then I will grind it all down into a tomato powder that I will use to add flavor and thicken soups and stews and sauces throughout the winter. Hot pepper relish. Now you guys know that I love the hot pepper relish. So I had made a batch in July, loved it. We'd eaten through, I think, 3 jars of it by the time August rolled around. So this was one of my first projects. This is a new favorite, and I have to tell you, I ended August 31st telling you that I had a bunch of peppers in my fridge. So you know what I did with those, right? I made 2 more batches of this hot pepper relish. So in addition to the 10 here, the 10 I did in July, I have another 22 jars. So I ought to be okay on hot pepper relish. It's just, you know, an addiction hits, and boy, may as well strike while the iron is hot, right? So then we fermented some sriracha. This has not been shaken, stirred, anything since I canned it. It's just been sitting in here in its box. This has held up so well, blended so perfectly. This is one of the prettiest sriracha sauces I have ever made. There was no separating of the liquid and solids, right, like you normally see. So that I'm absolutely thrilled with. I have 2 jars of that, and I have a half pint that's in the refrigerator. Wasn't enough to can. Then I have 1 lonely little jar of pickles. I have pickles left from last year. I have refrigerator pickles. I have fermented pickles, as you saw. We really tend to eat those before we eat the jarred pickles. So I have 1 to add to the pantry downstairs, and that's plenty. I didn't have any on my list, and I'm okay with that. Potatoes. I had a bunch of potatoes from the garden this year. So I canned up maybe half of them. I've got some I'm going to pull aside for some meals in jar recipes that we'll be doing. And then I'll probably can whatever's left after that pretty quickly thereafter. The golden ones just don't last quite as long as the white ones do. So I want to make sure I don't lose anything. And we are keto at the moment, so I need to save them somehow, right? All right, so there's that. I also did these big jars of them. I just think they're so pretty. And then, oh, I did not make enough of this. This is my roasted tomato, onion, and garlic sauce. I'll definitely be using some of those frozen tomatoes to make some more of this. This is probably my most used tomato recipe throw-in thing. So I throw it into sauces, I throw it into soups, stews. It has the tomatoes, it has the onions, it has the garlic, all the flavors right there. I don't need to go chop a bunch of extra things. It's just there. So I only got 3 of those done because I had a relatively small batch of tomatoes at the time, but I'll get several more of these done. And then hot peppers. Hot pickled peppers. I have all kinds of different colors of these. The ones with more color, you know, more of the dark green, more of the red, more of the orange. Those are the hotter ones. These that have more yellow, that's sweet banana pepper in there, so those are a little milder. My goal, this is another one of David's special requests, my goal was to get 24 to 36 of those on the shelf by the end of the canning season. I did 28 during the month of August. So I have met that goal. And then September 1st, or 2nd, whatever it was, when I did the extra batches of these, I also did another 8 of those. So I now have 36 of those. I forget how many of these, 1,042,000 or something like that. So I should be good on peppers. So now I'm actively looking for other recipes for especially hot peppers because I still have a ton coming in from the garden. My garden did really well on peppers this year, so I am excited about that. And that's it. That's what we got done in 31 days. It was sometimes it was hard to get anything done during the day, quite frankly. You know, we all have a lot of stuff going on. Many of you work during the week. Sometimes you got stuff done, sometimes you made up for it on the weekend. It doesn't matter, every bit counts. And that wraps up the 2023 Every Bit Counts Challenge. It was a great one. I thank you all for participating with me. I thank Jessica for including us in this. I am grateful to have been a part of it, and I'm grateful to be able to share with you what I've done and what you have done during the month. So this month, I've done a lot of canning, you've done a lot of canning, but we haven't done a lot of canning together. So next Saturday, we're gonna fix that. We're gonna can a new recipe. I think you're gonna love it. I will see you then. In the meantime, thank you so much for being here. Bye-bye.